kindergarten teacher called me Alex because she didn't know how to say Alejandro. She would call me Alejandro, and it made my soul cringe because I did not want to hear my name said differently than the way my father said it. My father would either say, Alejandro, Andito, ven aquí. You know what I'm saying? So I would affectionately respond to my name being said the right way. Anyway, as time has progressed, as it does, I have become a father of five girls and one boy and a grandson, ranging in the ages of 12, 14, 16, 23, 24, and 25. And my grandson will be two on the 12th. So I have an opportunity to be a good steward of these beautiful young people. Pero en la pasado, no crecí hablando español en mi casa, porque mi papá tengo miedo que pasar esta información a mí, porque lo practicamos en la pasado tan mucho negativo en Nueva York. So I learned to adapt. And my father's main instruction for me was to make good grades in English so that I would not have to experience the prejudice that he experienced growing up in New York, being of Latino descent and speaking Spanish and trying to speak English with a Spanish accent. It created a lot of weird energy. So, without further ado, now that you know a little bit about me and a little bit about my father, I'll tell you about my mom. My mom is an African American woman born in California, raised in Dallas, Texas. My mom and my dad met in the military. So weird how they met. My mom said it was a Friday evening. She was sipping and tipping and having girl time. It had been a long day at the barracks, and her and her girlfriends were having a good time with each other. And she saw this Puerto Rican man walk across the courtyard. She's like, girl, he is fine. And when she had identified this man is to be her one, she went out. She said, girl, that's going to be my husband. She introduced herself as Cornfields from the dirty South. They engaged to each other in Hanau, Germany, is where they were. And that's where I was made, hecho in Germany, and born in Dallas, Texas. So now you have a little read on my mom. Now my mom is the oldest of six. If you were the oldest in your family and you were the caregiver, raise your hand if you're one of those individuals who had to sacrifice, look after siblings, and take care. If that's you, raise your hand. Now my father's a little different. He was the youngest of 13. The youngest of how many? 13. Now, you know, if you the youngest of 13 in a Latino household, you're going to be a spoiled brat. So my dad did not leave the house until he was like 24 years old. So my mom left when she was 21. My dad left when they were 24, and they kind of met. And that's how you got Alejandro Perez Jr. So what I want to do in my specialty is to have people move together, breathe together, create together, share together, and most importantly, be together. So I'm going to invite you out of your seats in a moment, and we're going to move our bodies so that we can get the energy moving a certain type of way. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite my 505 loop, and my grandson is here. So if you hear some weird noises that are not um, really in rhythm, it's him interfering with what's going on. I think my daughter's coming to save me though right now. That sounds weird. All right, I'm inviting everybody up out of their seats. And what we're going to do is we're going to move our bodies just a little bit to allow our bodies to feel the energy of awakeness. We're going to start with flossing our spines to allow your arms to kind of hang down beside you. And what we're going to do is we're going to rotate our body from right to left like so. And just kind of let the energy move. Wake those hips and waist up. Feel the body allow itself to kind of relax. 5, 6, 7, and relax in the front. Arms down to your side. Now you're gonna reach down like you're trying to touch your knee. And we're gonna lean from right to left. And these exercises are exercises that everybody can do. Everybody feel connected to them. And they're not difficult, but what they do is allow your spine to be flexible, allow the energy to move through your body easy. And if you have issues in your tissues or stress within your temple, this allows you to kind of move some of that stuff out in real time. 5, 6, 7, and now we're going to open our chest using our arms, and then we're going to close our chest, creating an arch in the back. Open and close, open, close, open and close. 5, 6, 7, double time. Open, close, open, close, open, close, open, close, open, close, open, close. 5, 6, 7. Shake it out. Now let's roll that neck. Roll it around the corner. Snack, crackle, and pop. And 5, 6, 7. Otro lado, other way. 5, 6, 7, and relax. Roll those shoulders back. 5, 6, 7. Relax. Deep breath up. Blow it out. Deep breath in. Blow it out. Breath in. And blow it out. All right, I'm gonna invite everybody back to their seats. Now I want you to put your right hand up and repeat after me. Say, my voice has power to speak my truth and share my light. Con otra mano se dice, mi voz tiene poder para hablar mi verdad y compartir mi luz. Now shake out both hands. Now we're going to say it in English and Spanish para estimular dos partes de tu cerebro. My voice, mi voz, has power, tiene poder, to speak, para hablar, my truth, mi verdad, and share, y compartir, my light, mi luz, my light, mi luz, light, loose, light, loose, light, loose. We're going to keep it light and loose and have a good time and connection. And since I've shared with you those words, I'd like to share with you a song that constitute all those words together. How it works is very simple. I'm going to sing the melody. My voice has power to speak my truth and share my light. Then when I say the words voice, you won't repeat the word voice. You'll actually spell it. Voice, V-O-I-C-E. We'll do it with power. P-O-W-E-R. Speak, S-P-E-A-K. Truth, T-R-U-T-H. Light, L-I-G-H-T, and we at the line, and I'm gonna let it shine. Then I'm gonna say, who has the power? And you're gonna respond, I have the power. I'll say, how will you use it? And you'll say, I will use it well. And I'll say, there's power in the spoken word, and you'll repeat it. I have a right to be heard, and you'll repeat it. There's power in the spoken word, and you repeat it. I have a right to be heard. And what I'm going to do to make your lives a little easier is I'm going to actually share a document that's going to allow you to see the words that you're learning and saying in real time. So let me pull that up for you. With that being said, full screen it. If you can see it and it's clear, say yes, or give me a thumbs up. I don't know aesthetically what it looks like when you're looking at this in this manner. Looks like you can probably see everything on my screen the way it's on my screen, because I'm trying to see what you see, but I don't think I can see what you see the way you see it. I'm looking, but I just Don't know. Anyway, with that being said, let me see, make sure I have this full screen setting on. No, that's not full screen. That's full screen. Okay. Let's see if I can blow that up a little bit. All right. Here we go. Now let me create this rhythm for you in real time. Porque todas las cosas, ya lo nueva, todas las tiempos yo lo hace. Okay, here we go. And what's really interesting about this is you hear the rhythm, right? You hear the rhythm, there is a movement that goes with it. And the rhythm is very simple. You put your hands on your laps like so, and you go to the rhythm. You go lap, lap, clap, clap, snap, snap, clap, clap, lap, lap, clap, clap, snap, snap, clap, clap. And this is going to wake up both the left and the right brain at the same time. So that means you're not just going to be using one side of your brain, but you're going to be using also the creative side. So the intellectual side and the creative side are now going to work together. And you're just going to repeat these rhythms over and over, mashing. And what I'm going to do is continue to build the track with that being said. My voice has power to speak my truth and share my life. My voice has power to speak my truth and share my life. Let me hear you say my voice has power to speak my truth and share my life. My voice has power to speak my truth and share my life. Left brain, voice, V-O-I-C-E, power, P-O-W-E-R, speak, S-P-E-A-K, truth, T-R-U-T-H, light, L-I-G-H-T, and I'm gonna let it shine. Question. Who has the power? I have the power. How will you use it? I will use it. Well, I said, who has the power? Who has the power? How will you use it? I will use it. Well, say there's power in the spoken word. Let me hear you say, there's power in the spoken word. Say, I have a right to be heard. I have a right to be heard. Say, there's power in the spoken word. There's power in the spoken word. Say, I have a right to be heard. I have a right to be heard. Say, my voice has power to speak my truth and share my life. My voice has power to speak my truth and share my light. Left brain, voice, V-O-I-C-E, power, P-O-W-E-R, speak, S-P-E-A-K, truth, T-R-U-T-H, light, L-I-G-H-T, and I'm gonna let it shine. Question, who has the power? I have the power. How will you use it? I will use it. Well, I said, who has the power? I have the power. How will you use it? I will use it. Well, say there's power in the spoken word. There's power in the spoken word. Say, I have a right to be heard. I have a right to be heard. Say, there's power in the spoken word. There's power in the spoken word. Say, I have a right to be heard. I have a right to be heard. Say, Say, my voice has power to speak my truth and share my light. My voice has power to speak my truth and share my light. Two more times for the mind. Say, my voice has power to speak my truth and share my light. Last time, my voice has power to speak my truth and share my light. Now, once upon a time, I was so afraid to like share my light in that capacity, believe it or not. But I was groomed for sharing in this way. My grandmother, my mother, and my great-grandmother, all in the same church house, made sure that I learned how to sing in front of a bunch of people, that I learned how to speak with confidence in the front of a lot of people. And let me tell you, it was terrifying. But over time, I have grown past my fear and stand in my strength as a artist, as a activator, and as a creative. And that has given me an opportunity to really find nuances of myself. And I'm really proud of myself. And you know what? I didn't know that I needed to learn how to be proud of myself, intrinsically motivated in myself. And what's really interesting is when we parent, we say things like, we're proud of you. We say things like, we're really accomplished. But sometimes we forget to ask the question, are you proud of yourself? Are you proud of what you have done? So we have to encourage that intrinsic motivation, and we have to be comfortable in those spaces. And if we're comfortable in those spaces, inviting that kind of nurturing, then we can teach the natural self to come out, that life coach that lives in each person to awaken their own personal voice. Now I would like to share with you 5 pillars. Now, these 5 pillars I use for myself. I was always told that if you're going to give from yourself, make sure that you give from your overflow and not your essence. Because if you give from your essence, you'll be depleted. You'll be tired. You'll feel overworked. You'll feel spread out too thin. But like they say when you're on an airplane, if the mask falls down, you put your mask on first before you put it on to the children, right? So that means you have to pour into yourself first. And what I want to share with you, or what I call the 5 pillars. And these 5 pillars I use to build my own restorative practice. And they're built around 5 words. And these 5 words are need, which stands for nourishing energy every day. Love, letting our voices engage. Peace, positive energy, activating community efforts. Tribe, to reconnect in beauty every day. And art, activating real truth, a ritualized transformation. And what I want to do is I want to share this in the way that I love sharing, and I'm going to create the track in real time like I did last time. But this one is a little bit different because it offers 2 melodies. So whichever melody calls your name, I want you to latch on to that melody, and I want you to sing it like everyone is listening, but no one is listening but you. That means you can sing as hard as you want and off key as you want, or try to match the melody as you want, but feel invited and connected to the rhythm more than anything, because music is a healer and it allows us to take in messages that stay with us, because melodies build memory. With that being said, here we go. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Now everyone in this world has a need. Nourishing energy every day makes us complete. But it starts with getting enough sleep, watching what you eat and drinking, watching what you think and believe, you feel me? And everyone in this world needs love. Letting our voices engage in real conversation builds us up and invites us to a place of self-determination, defining self for self. Now that's true revelation. And everyone in this world needs peace, positive energy, activated community efforts. And this becomes effortless when we're at our best, but we have to feel safe before this happens. And everyone in this world needs strive to reconnect, and beauty every day makes us feel alive. And when you're with your tribe, you don't have to put on face, and you can say what you feel and it's gonna be okay. And everyone in this world needs art, activating real truth. Now that's the spark, an invitation to a ritualized transformation. But remember, all this begins with the conversation. So feel the need and feel the love and feel the peace and find your tribe and discover art. But make sure you do all of this with heart, because we need love, peace, tribe, heart. Yeah, say it with me. Need love, peace, tribe, heart. Yeah, say it with me. Need love, peace, tribe, heart. Dice conmigo, por favor. Need love, peace, tribe, heart. One more time for me, let me say, need love, peace, tribe, heart. Yeah, la 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 la. Now, beautiful people, whether you know it or not, when you feel the needs in your life, you're better and you show up better for other people. When you discover that you're meeting your needs. And all of us have gone through a lot of challenging things during this particular season. So you have to be very cognizant of what you need and that you're being attentive to the needs that you have, so that when you show up for others, you can show up on purpose. And when you're dealing in love, as we have to lead with our hearts, we have to make sure that our mind takes that long trip to the heart, so we build bridges of connection, of acceptance and self-love. And when we let our voices engage in real conversations, we found our commonalities. Peace. When positive energy activates community efforts, there's no force on the planet Earth that can stop us, because we're starting with our intentions being set, and our goals will be met because we'll move with that intentionality. And what better way to do it but with our tribes, to reconnect in beauty every day? Because when you with your tribe, those are the people that you vibe with. Those are the people that you connect with. Those are the people that you can really sharpen your tools of exponential greatness. But you have to be with your peeps first, and then you take that action step to the world. And finally, art, activating your real truth. You don't have to be an artist to come up with creative solutions. But when we put our minds together, we are invited to a ritualized transformation. It transforms the way we think, the way we act, the way we respond. So I want you to continually allow yourself to move on purpose and create service, especially in the area of language justice. I didn't grow up speaking Spanish. Tengo miedo cuando hablando español. I have so much fear, but I try sometimes. But when I get in these areas where I see so many Latinos que habla puro español tan excelente, I'm like, whew, it's intimidating. You know what I'm saying? But I also know that the invitation, and I love being when I'm in intimate settings and I'm trying to speak in Spanish and there's a little nuance of correction that helps me kind of say the words that I want to say. So I want to say thank you for having a space for me, an Afro-Latino who grew up, no creció hablando español en la casa, pero tengo un conexión gran, mejor con mi abuela, con mi papá, y las otras personas en mi familia que hablan conmigo en español. So when they speak to me in Spanish, I understand it, and a lot of times I'm scared to speak back in English, but I feel connected to it. Los raíces escondidos están mucho rico. Tú sabes, ya tú sabes, right? With that being said, I want to turn it back over to my sister Rosa. Muchísimas gracias por todos los tiempos tu pasas. Oportunidades para mí que expresar mi historia, mi vida y conectar con mi gente, todo el mundo.
Thank you so much, Alejandro. If you all can open up your mic and give either Alejandro some love,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I have no idea how good
Alejandro.
this feels.
Gracias, Alejandro.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much for engaging in the activities and just being present in this moment. We want to invite everyone to be present, to explore some of these deep themes around language and identity, and how they relate to our, our advocacy and our organizing efforts. I'm going to share my screen with you all real quick, just to kind of share a little bit of our time together today. But before I do so, I want to make sure that whether in your name or in the chat, if you could please put your name, how you want to be referred to today, your name, your preferred pronouns, and then we're doing something a little bit different. If your preferred language is Spanish, just put like a little 1. If your preferred language is English, put a number 2. So it's either a 1 or a 2. You could put it in the chat, or you could put it in you can change your name there. So I want to make sure that you all have an opportunity to do that this morning. We want to make sure that everybody can do that with us. I'm going to move us on a little bit about our time together. Could everybody see my screen okay? Yeah. Okay, our time together, we did a little bit of work around connecting to our stories, and we appreciate Alejandro's bringing us into that space of understanding our heart and how our heart and our mind are so connected. We're going to talk a little bit about language oppression and the history of language oppression, because we didn't come to this place today of talking about language justice if there wasn't an injustice already done, right? So we will be talking about what are those language injustices that occurred throughout the history of our country, of our spaces, of Colorado, that kind of lead us to this point of talking about language justice and why it's so important. We'll give you all a little bit of a time to break, go grab an extra cup of coffee, go use the bathroom, whatever you need to. We'll talk a little bit about what is language justice and then how to practice it. So that is kind of the gist of our time together this morning. I'm going to just share a little bit about the CLC and who your facilitators are today. So Indira Guzman, who I know has been doing the bulk of the work and connecting with the Fort Collins team. She is the director and founder of the CLC. And you all might already know this, but we are sisters. Indira and I are sisters. And our work actually began interpreting in church for our dad. My dad is a pastor, our dad is a pastor. And that is how we entered into this world of interpreting, right? And it is really around creating a space in the church for English and Spanish speakers to come together. I don't know, Indira, do you want to give a little bit of background around you and where you are and all that kind of fun stuff?
Absolutely. So we have been working, the COC started in 2014. We are based out of Denver. I am personally out of Sheridan. But since COVID started, I decided to move to Aguascalientes. My father is starting some signs of Alzheimer's, so I wanted to come be with my parents so I could support them, and they end up supporting me more than I support them. But I am with you all the way from Aguascalientes, un pueblito chiquito que se llama Pabellón de Arteaga, Aguascalientes. Está bien bonito, me encanta estar aquí, me encanta conectarme a mis raíces, a mi idioma, mis hijos están hablando más español, ellos saben de dónde somos y es algo hermoso la oportunidad que nos ha brindado este espacio virtual que tenemos ahora. So, les estamos acompañándoles desde Aguascalientes porque Rosa vino a estar con nosotros unos días. Entonces, desde Aguascalientes les mandamos mucho amor.
Gracias, Indira. So yeah, just a little bit about us. I am one of the co-founders. Like Indira mentioned, we started in 2013 or 2014. And really out of this need for a space for people like us, like Indira and I, who grew up speaking both English and Spanish, to professionalize the work and the expertise that we had been doing for years now. We've been in this space for years. And so we wanted to create an organization, a co-op that valued the experiences of immigrants, that valued the experiences of children who grew up speaking both languages and having to navigate that for their parents and their family members, right? And so that is kind of the intent behind the co-op, is that we truly are community driven. We're going to move us right into a space about talking about language oppression and why this is so important to talk about language oppression to get us to language justice. In this time, what we're going to do after I give you all a little bit of an introduction, we're going to be breaking out into small groups, into breakout groups. We're not all going to be covering all of the history of language oppression, but rather I'm going to give you all specific slides to go through with your group and reflect on. So we'll be doing that in just a second. So quickly, does anybody, here are some false assumptions, and it's, I don't have the PowerPoint feature where we can say, is it true or false? But many people believe that immigrants in the past quickly gave up their native languages and culture to become Americans, right? Those are the stories that we're told. We're always told that, oh, you know what? Like when people came to America, they were ready to be Americans and they were ready to give up, all of their native tongue, their native culture, because they wanted to be a part of the United States. That is false. That is not truly how it happened. We still can see that within our immigrant communities. There are pieces of us that are still very much a part of our native tongue, of our communities and culture, right? So the United States is now and has always been a multicultural and multilingual country, right? Since the very inception, since the beginning, the US had to face issues related to language, cultural diversity, particularly in the areas of education. So that is a false assumption. That isn't true that everybody just came in and quickly gave up their language. Okay, the other false assumption is that English is the official language of the United States. I cannot see everybody because I'm sharing my screen right now, but obviously that is false, right? When we see videos of these people at Target or at JCPenney that say, this is America, speak English, that is false, right? America does not have an official language. And one of the reasons, right, was because many people, it was already established as a dominant language, but the founding fathers also understood that there was diversity among those who had fought for the independence of America. And so they wanted to ensure that those folks were allowed to still speak and still value their heart languages. So there you go. America does not have an official language. How many of you all have heard before, this is America, speak English? And you all could either do a hand raise or something that shows me that you have heard that before said in your circles. Anybody? Yes. See a couple folks. Yes. It is a very common thing that we hear. This is America speak English. Well, America doesn't have an official language, so there we go. The next thing that we hear is that bilingual education was an experiment, right? It was just a thing that happened in the 60s, which wasn't actually that long ago. But it's not true, right? Since the 17th century, we've seen our education system really make space for a dozen of different languages. And we see in particular the German. You all will read through the history of language oppression. Because of German immigrants, there was a lot of bilingual education to accommodate for those folks. So it's not just like a thing that happened in 1968 because all of a sudden we have an influx of migration patterns from Mexico and Latin and Central America. That's not why it happened. The US has always had to make space for bilingual education. And we see that throughout history. We've seen that there's a typo there. There's a couple of typos. I'm not sure what happened here. That it has been that English has been both tolerated and accepted, but in some cases we have seen throughout time that we've seen folks restrict that, right? And that is really due to racism, and we'll kind of explore those themes around how it's so tied. Language is so tied to race and racism and racial oppression, right? And so we're going to be exploring those themes as we go through our time together. So I'm going to share with you all here the three different types of language oppression that we see in the United States. The first one we have is with enslaved Africans, right? We saw the way that when Africans were brought over, they were prohibited from learning to read and write English, and that was on purpose because it was those were what they called compulsory ignorance laws. They didn't want them to engage in literature. They didn't want them to have an opportunity to better themselves. How many of y'all have heard the phrase knowledge is power, or education is power, right? This was very true for enslaved Africans in the sense that they wanted to keep them purposely ignorant of reading and writing in English. The second way that we really see language oppression in the United States is, of course, through Native Americans, right? Our indigenous communities, and how they were stripped of their language and their culture, right? The United States designed English only boarding schools, and that was used to eradicate everything related to Native American language, Native American culture. And what we see that ended up happening there is that children, and eventually they were unable, children and adults were unable to communicate with their elders if they ever returned home after the boarding schools. And then the other way that we start seeing language oppression is through German Americans, right? After World War I, we saw America make English proficiency a requirement for Germans to become citizens. And that is very much, we kind of see the impact of that now when I know many times Mexicans are trying to become naturalized citizens, and they wait until they're older so that they don't have to take the English part of the test, right? I think it's after they're 62 or 65 or something like that. They can skip through. They don't have to take the English proficiency piece. But those are the types of laws that, even though they happened after World War I, we still see that English proficiency piece placed on, that requirement placed on to become a naturalized citizen. And then, of course, we see, other ways. These are three major ways that we see language oppression. But then we also see, particularly around Mexican Americans, and we see especially in the Southwest, in Arizona, Colorado, Texas, California, an entire generation that opted to not teach their children Spanish because they wanted to ensure that they weren't discriminated against for speaking Spanish. Or we see an entire generation of folks that instead of naming their children, Teresa, they named them Teresa. Or instead of naming their children Juan, Pedro, it was John, Peter, right? It was this sense of forced assimilation and almost survival, right? We wanted this entire generation of folks wanted to do better and wanted their children to have it easier than they did. And so they decided, they opted to not teach their children Spanish. And so those are some of the lingering effects that we still see in our time, that we have so many Latinos in the United States that don't speak Spanish, that don't connect to their native language, but that was intentional, that was on purpose. It wasn't sometimes we say, ay, qué payaso que no quiere hablar inglés, mira cómo o no quiere hablar español, mira cómo se mira bien mexicano y no quiere hablar español. Well, and I'm guilty of having said that before in my life. And now, after I understand, it wasn't an intentional purpose. It wasn't that they don't want to. It was the way that they were stripped. I'm going to give us about 2 to 3 minutes. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I want you all to reflect on kind of the history of language oppression around these categories of enslaved Africans, Native Americans, German Americans, and then of course others, like the other immigrant groups. And you can either put it in the chat or open up your mic, and any reflections or any aha moments that you have. We want this to be an opportunity for folks to speak up. Go ahead and mute myself so you can go ahead and share out. Anybody? Are we a little bit embarrassed today to share and either how this information made you feel, maybe some deeper reflections, questions that you might still have about it, or maybe how you see it show up in your communities right now. María.
Sí, es nada más un comentario. Tengo algunas personas conocidas que no quieren, no hablan inglés ni siquiera bien, o sea, ni siquiera poquito bien, y no quieren que sus hijos hablen español, porque piensan que les va a ayudar más. Y para mí es uno de los peores errores que podemos cometer. Yo pienso que el inglés se aprende en la escuela, o sí, básicamente los niños, desde que están los niños pequeños, pero que el español el español o tu idioma nativo, ¿no? Se tiene que seguir hablando en la casa. Y hace poco nos pasó en Fuerza Latina un caso de una señora que quisimos que sus niños, ella está recién llegada de Guatemala, y que sus niños entraran a una escuela bilingüe porque estaban muy estresados en una escuela donde no hay niños que hablan español, ni compañeros ni maestros, y quisimos que cambiarlos a una escuela bilingüe para bajar un poquito su estrés y que estuvieran los niños más cómodos y darles más tiempo de que aprendieran. Y la señora no quiso porque quiere que los niños aprendan, según ella, más rápido. Les está causando mucho dolores de cabeza, les está causando hasta estreñimiento. Ya fue al hospital y es cuestión de estrés lo que la niña tiene, pero ella no quiere cambiarla a una escuela bilingüe, insiste en que tiene que aprender inglés más rápido y no la deja en la casa ni que hable español, aunque la señora no sabe inglés. Es un poco complicado que la gente entienda eso.
Y creo que esto viene a raíz de la opresión que han experimentado nuestras comunidades. No es algo que ella de repente le nazca decir, oh, eso es lo que voy a hacer. Es por las maneras que experimentamos opresión. Y rápidamente voy a repasar las 4 Is de opresión, porque cuando entendemos cómo funciona la opresión, vamos a poder entender por qué nuestra comunidad internaliza estas ideas y por qué ellos actúan de esta manera. Entonces, la manera que funciona la opresión, yo uso este modelo siempre, pero la primera es la ideología. Alguien saca una idea. Por ejemplo, el inglés es el idioma que se debe de hablar en este país. Vamos a decir que ese es el ejemplo. Es una idea, nomás a alguien se le ocurre algo. El segundo es una institución o una ley, una política, una práctica que la gente saca que hace que la gente diga, oh, sí, vamos a tomar esta idea y la vamos a hacer como una ley. Entonces, una ley o una práctica que se usa en instituciones podría ser así como cuando los niños entran a la escuela, te hacen una encuesta y te dicen, ¿cuáles idiomas hablan en la casa? Como para saber cuáles niños hablan inglés y cuáles niños hablan español. Entonces, eso es una práctica que ya tú estás pensando, oh, pues si hablaran inglés mis hijos, no estaríamos llenando esta encuesta. O a lo mejor los pusieran en otras clases si no tuviéramos que llenar una encuesta. Y es una práctica que lo hacen para recibir más fondos o yo no sé qué prácticas hace la escuela, pero eso es algo que a nosotros nos empieza a pensar de esa manera. Luego lo que pasa es interpersonal, la manera que nosotros nos tratamos unos a otros. Primero está la ideología, alguien se inventa una idea y luego está la institución. Hay instituciones y prácticas, políticas, leyes que nos hacen pensar que sí es cierto, esta idea que alguien se inventó es verdad. Y luego está la manera que uno se trata unos con otros. Y ahí es donde Rosa hablaba que a veces vamos a la tienda y que dicen, hey, no estén hablando español aquí, este país se habla inglés. Y es la manera como uno trata a la otra persona, como nosotros nos tratamos entre dos personas o entre grupos. Y eso también es bien dañino porque cuando tú empiezas a sentir que te están discriminando, que te están tratando mal porque no hablas el inglés o porque lo hablas con acento o porque no lo hablas bien, uno empieza a internalizarlo y ese es el más peligroso para mí. Cuando uno mismo internaliza las ideas y te crees lo que ellos te están diciendo. Por ejemplo, tú dices, sí, cierto, yo mejor a mi hijo no le voy a poner Roberto, se va a llamar Robert o empiezas a internalizar, no, que mis hijos no hablen español, que hablen inglés para que ellos entiendan mejor. Y empiezas a internalizar esas ideas de una idea de que la hicieron en una ley, una institución, que hace que nosotros nos tratemos diferente y que nosotros internalicemos esos mensajes que no son verdad. Cuando nosotros empezamos a reconocer esas opresiones que nosotros mismos practicamos en nosotros, entonces podemos ir cambiando la manera que tratamos unos a otros, podemos ir trabajando para cambiar las políticas, las instituciones y cambiamos las ideas de las personas para hacer que la opresión vaya como reversing, cambiándola para que se vaya al otro lado. Entonces, pero empieza al uno reconocer que eso pasa y muchas veces eso nos cuesta mucho reconocer esas cosas. Pero gracias por estar aquí porque ahorita vamos a repasar mucho de ese material que nos va a dar una idea de cuáles son las instituciones, las políticas, las prácticas que se han implementado en este país que nos han llevado a pensar de esta manera y a internalizar estos mensajes. Rosa, te doy lugar.
Gracias, Indira. ¿Alguien más quizás tenga un comentario quizás sobre las 4 Is de opresión? Sarah? I think you're muted, Sarah. Sorry. I think you're muted. Can you unmute yourself, Sarah? It's okay. Do you want us to come back to you, Sarah, and see if you can get your mic unmuted? Yeah, we'll come back to you. Sorry about that. Hopefully you can get it unmuted because I'd love, or you can also put it in the chat box if you want. Yeah, so we see the way that that the four eyes of oppression really show up in our work and the way that we approach language. What I'm going to invite you all today to do is we are going to be dividing up into 3 groups. And in these 3 groups, you are all going to get about anywhere between 6 to 8 slides that talk about specific policies or things that happen throughout history related to language. So I'm going to share my screen just so that I can see it, so you can see it. And Indira is going to make sure that she breaks you up into small groups. The first group is going to start here where it says school begins. And they are going to take these slides in the PowerPoint presentation. There are some notes on the notes section that you can read through and just kind of reflect with your small groups. So you're going to take this part, it's in English and Spanish, all the way to Blau versus Nichols. Let's see. This will be your last slide. So that'll be the first group. The second group is going to start with equal educational opportunities, this slide, and go all the way to right here, today's reality, the U.S. English movement. And then the last group is going to start with today's reality, the poor, and take us all the way to right here, additional resources. But actually, it's probably some good news. So I will share with you all what group you're going to be in. And then Indira will also be sharing the slide deck with you all. But we'll go into each group to make sure that we can join in. Indira, are we ready? Huh? 3 groups. Yes. So let's see who's in group 1. No.
Group 1, Agustin. Okay, this is what I have. In group 1, Agustin, Herrera, Ana, Elsa, Manuela, and Megan. If you're, I want to put all the Spanish speakers in one group. So if you want to be in the Spanish speaking group, just come back to the main meeting and we'll put you in. I think we're all set. So we'll do it that way. Instead of naming the people, I'm going to put you all in groups. If you are in a group that, or in a group that people, that is the language that you don't prefer, just come back to the main session. Ready? Vámonos. No. Ahí va. Okay, share. Quiero poner share. Anyone? Shh. I thought that she did. She didn't? Dile Shirley, I'm not the co-host.
Shirley, can you make me a co-host just so that I can get into and share the slides with folks?
Yes. Well,
Sí. Is anyone not in a group that
Hola. ¿Este es un grupo en español?
Elsa y Agustín, ¿ustedes necesitan un otro grupo o no?
Okay.
¿Cómo?
¿Ustedes necesitan mover un otro corto o qué pasó?
Sí, es que confundimos los números, entonces pusimos el 2
Ah,
y era el 1 que debíamos escoger. Entonces nos mandaron al de
ok.
inglés y
Bueno, me voy a ponerlos en el español en un momento.
Gracias.
Sí. Ok. Elsa, ¿tienes un mensaje para juntar con Room 2? No.
Si oprimo Leave, creo que me voy a salir del Zoom, ¿verdad?
Sí. Sí, no sé. Quizás puedes tratar de salir y juntar de nuevo, si quieres, Elsa. Ok. Hola. No puedo escucharte. Oh. Mm,
Sorry, the internet got lost. I think, do people have the presentation? No. Let me go in the rooms and share the presentation.
Okay. Yeah, Stephanie in room
again?
2 just sent me a message asking for some help.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, so yeah, go to room 2 if you can.
Make me co-host so I could get into the group.
Oh, right.
We're having a birthday party for my son, and the Jumping Castle got here and they took down the internet. Like, no. So, okay. I'll go to group 2.
Okay.
Tengo una pregunta. El grupo de nosotros teníamos que tener cierto tema de cuál estar hablando.
Sabes que Indira está en room 2 ahorita. So ella puede contestar tus preguntas porque
Ok, porque
no
hay
sé,
otro.
lo siento. Ya.
El otro grupo tampoco sabe cuál es el tema de ellos. So, nomás me voy a regresar a mi grupo. Me imagino que va a entrar alguien a hablar.
Voy a ponerte en room 2, ¿ya? En un momento.
Shirley, is there any way you can make me a co-host so I can join some of the breakout groups? Sorry, I don't know if Ali shared the. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think most of them have it, but do you have the breakdown of who is doing what?
I sent them to Ali as well.
You want to put that on the, so they should be good. Let me join another breakout room.
Hola, Elsa.
Hola.
¿Cuánto tiempo les diste, Rosy? You're muted.
Like 13 minutes.
Oh, 13 minutes, okay.
Did you go through? I went to group 1. Did you check with group 2 and 3?
I went to group 3 and they're good. Let me double check with group 2.
Okay.
Así se me hace que sí.
Just check.
Room 2, yes.
Hey, Rosa. Or Alejandro, maybe no. Or is it 13 more minutes from now? Or
Yeah.
time for the breakout rooms?
Yeah, I'm going to say, see, probably like at 10:30 or excuse me, 11:30 would be your time, right? 11:30.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay?
And then I'll send a message a minute before just to let them know. I'll close the breakout room.
Rosa.
Yes.
What slides are the groups looking at? Put it on the chat so I could share it with them.
I did.
I think there's confusion about
19 through 26. It's on there.
That's for group 2?
Yep, 19 through 26. Okay. So they start off where equal opportunity, equal educational opportunity, all the way to today's reality.
Okay, déjame les digo.
Shirley, no pude entrar, me vuelve a pasar aquí, ya aquí como 3 veces. No puedo entrar a otro lado.
Oh, ay de mí. Ok. A ver, ¿qué podemos hacer?
Aquí me apareció.
Actually, Shirley, I'm wondering if we just because we had that internet thing, if we just come back at 11:35, just give them 5 more minutes. Is that okay? Sorry.
Yeah, sounds good.
Right.
No worries.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Alejandro, you doing okay?
Just chilling.
Do they have it, Indira? Are they good?
Sí.
All right. And I was just telling Shirley, just because we had that confusion, maybe come back at 11:35. So give them about 10 more minutes.
Muy bien.
Because I think some of them are just now getting into that conversation.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Ali, ¿cómo te va? You can't hear me. Okay, good.
Shirley, did you want to be in a group at all, or are you good? And Marta, ¿quiere entrar en un grupo?
I'm good.
Okay, that sounds good.
I don't know. No sé si martes está allá, but yeah.
I'm going to step into some of the groups and listen in, and I'll be back.
Okay.
Bienvenidos de nuevo. ¿Cómo están? ¿Cómo les fue? María estaba en medio de una historia muy interesante y no sé, María, si la quiere contar un poquito más abreviada un poquito y contarnos qué fue lo que sucedió en la escuela de su hija.
Sí, ella nada más usaba el camión los viernes porque estaba en la banda y todos los días salía a las 8 de la noche. Entonces, el viernes ella se sube al camión y la señora le dice, tú no te puedes subir al camión hasta que yo hable con tus papás, porque tú eres la que me dice groserías en español. Bueno, todos los niños se pararon y la defendieron, le dijeron, ella no se ha subido en toda la semana, ella no dice groserías, ella no habla con nadie, y la dejó subir. Pero desde el mismo camión mi hija le habló a la liaison, le habló a la consejera, ya para el lunes ella ya tenían al policía, ya tenían a la señora del camión, a los estudiantes, porque ella separó a los alumnos, de este lado van los que hablan español, de este lado van los que hablan en inglés. Y obviamente si hay algunos niños que como molestos, sí, algunos sí aceptaron su culpabilidad de hablar recio, hablar cosas que no debían de hablar, pero porque ellos se sentían segregados, ellos se sentían, ella tenía lugares específicos para los niños que hablan español, pero fue cosa de 1 o 2 semanas, todo se arregló porque ellos hablaron y ellos fueron con el policía y le dijeron, yo le dije esto otro, pero ella me culpa de cosas que no hice y está culpando, porque señalaron a mi hija, está culpando a esa niña que casi trabaja para la escuela sin que le paguen y de haber hecho algo que no hizo. Pero sí, fueron ellos mismos que arreglaron todo.
Gracias, María. Estos son ejemplos que vemos de cómo políticas que se establecieron en años anteriores, ahora, aunque ya son contra la ley, es contra la ley segregar a personas en las escuelas basado en tú eres español, tú eres en inglés, eso no debe de suceder. Pero aún vemos, porque como sucedió por bastantes años y esa fue la ley, la política, y realmente es una política muy racista, vemos que, y más porque era para regañar a alguien, no era como asunto de confort, ¿no? De qué tan cómodos se podían sentir. Vemos que esas políticas ahora aunque ya son contra la ley, todavía vemos cómo reocurren en nuestras comunidades. Quiero nada más hacer una pregunta rápidamente. Muchas de las cosas que leyeron eran positivas, eran políticas positivas o eran políticas negativas. Quiero escuchar de quizás 1 o 2 personas que puedan abrir sus micrófonos.
Bueno, dentro de las cosas que leímos así rápido, una de las que me llamó la atención es que creo que fue en 1988, declaró el idioma inglés como lengua oficial. Pues se le puede ver de varios puntos. Posiblemente es una idea para unificar un solo idioma al país, pero a la vez yo pienso que da la libertad para discriminar en cuestión del lenguaje. Lo que hemos visto últimamente y más en la temporada del presidente pasado, de que aquí no se habla otro idioma más que inglés, tú no puedes hablar español, tú no puedes hablar en chino, tienes que hablar inglés. Entonces yo pienso que es un arma de doble filo, pero las personas lo están guiando más por el lado malo que por el lado positivo.
Gracias, Agustín. Sí, efectivamente vemos que esas leyes ahora estatales. Quiero hacer énfasis que las leyes de English Only son leyes estatales, no es una ley federal, y realmente la ley federal tiene mayor énfasis o mayor poder que una ley estatal. Entonces, aunque un estado pueda decir, aquí nada más se va a hablar español o inglés, la ley federal dice todos los idiomas son bienvenidos. O sea, realmente esta idea de hacer un estado inglés solamente es nada más como yo le llamo como un publicity stunt, como algo que lo hacen nada más para llamar la atención que somos racistas, queremos que nada más se hable el inglés, no es tanto porque realmente van a cambiar alguna política. Pero quizás escuchar de una persona más algo que les haya sorprendido, que les haya llamado la atención o que los haya llamado hacia la acción en cuanto a los asuntos de opresión.
Yo creo que todos los artículos, todas las situaciones que se presentaron eran súper opresivas, ¿no? Era como para borrar la cultura, la identidad de las personas y poder controlarlas. Y eso me hace pensar muchísimo como en apreciar lo que yo he vivido personalmente al mudarme a los Estados Unidos y como ver mi historia. Porque pues afortunadamente cuando yo me mudé a Estados Unidos, me mudé a la Florida y había una comunidad muy sólida cuando yo llegué, en donde me sentía libre hablando mi idioma y siendo mi cultura porque estaba como en una burbuja. Y pues era parte de los programas de ESL y pude salir de esos programas en el momento que yo consideré, a pesar de que fue muy difícil poderme salir de esos programas. Pero sí, realmente esto me ha servido para poner en perspectiva todo eso, porque hoy por hoy, depende de dónde estemos, en qué parte del país nos encontremos, hay diferentes retos que todos nos enfrentamos para poder sentirnos parte de un lugar y poder ser quien somos auténticamente.
Gracias, Ana. Muchas gracias por ese comentario. Quiero dejarle lugar ahora a Indira, que va a hablar un poquito sobre la justicia del lenguaje y sí, ya casi ya llegamos al tiempo, pero Indira.
Muchas gracias, Rosa. Nomás quiero contarles una pequeña historia antes de ir a la siguiente parte. Rosa ya les dijo que mi papá era pastor de una iglesia y cuando mi papá era pastor, pues él cada domingo tenía su iglesia, iban como unas 100 personas y él se paraba enfrente de la iglesia con mucha autoridad, mucha admiración. Yo lo miraba como un hombre de bien que tenía influencia en las vidas de las personas para vivir bien. Y él vino de México, se casó con mi mamá, mi mamá ya que se crió en Chicago y entonces sí hablaba inglés, pero mi papá no hablaba nada de inglés, él es de Coahuila. Y cuando mi papá estaba en la iglesia, él era un hombre de autoridad, de poder, de influencia y nosotros lo admirábamos mucho. Pero el momento que él entraba a una institución, cualquier institución, ya sea el banco, la escuela, todo su poder se le derretía de su cuerpo. Él no tenía esa influencia, no tenía ese poder ya, porque él no podía hablar ni comunicarse con la gente. Entonces, his power was to communicate with people. Lo que esto hacía era que nosotros le dijéramos lo que estaba pasando. Por esto es la justicia del lenguaje. Y voy a compartir la diapositiva para seguir hablando, para que podamos entender qué es lo que es la justicia del lenguaje. Sabemos que hay justicia, que hay opresión del lenguaje, que existe la opresión del lenguaje hasta ahora en día, pero nosotros podemos ser personas que abogan, que luchan, que están pidiendo la justicia del lenguaje. Entonces vamos a seguir compartiendo la diapositiva. Let me see where it is. Okay, here we go. Ok, y voy a presentar. Aquí está. Ok, Entonces, para continuar, ¿qué es lo que la justicia del lenguaje es? Es un espacio donde las estructuras sociales no se basan en el dominio de una lengua sobre las demás. Y eso es bien difícil crear este espacio. Nosotros pensamos que si queremos vernos inteligentes, ser más profesional, nos vamos a nuestro idioma que es default. Yo llamo nuestro default language y es el inglés. Y entonces, tradicionalmente la interpretación es solamente para las personas que hablan español, pero se nos olvida reconocer que la gente que habla español, las personas que hablan cualquier otro idioma, traen mucho que compartir, traen mucho que enseñar, podemos crecer juntos y podemos entendernos mejor. Entonces, no debería de ser nomás para las personas que hablan español. Entonces, la justicia del lenguaje lo que hace es que va a crear el espacio donde la interpretación y la traducción son apreciadas y valoradas como herramientas críticas para abrir la comunicación. Y la justicia del lenguaje es el derecho a todos a comunicarse en el idioma que más nos sintamos cómodas. Y nosotros decimos que ese idioma es el idioma de tu corazón, es el idioma que te hace sentir más pasión. Yo cuando cuento una historia en español y la cuento igual en inglés, vas a sentir más mi pasión porque a mí me sale más naturalmente el español y aunque tenga el inglés como mi idioma profesional y es lo que uso en espacios profesionales, el idioma de mi corazón que de veras se conecta a mis ideas y a mis pensamientos es el español. Y quiero preguntarles a ustedes, tal vez pónganlo en el chat allí, ¿cuál es el idioma de tu corazón? Vamos a la siguiente. A ver, ok. ¿Por qué practicar la justicia del lenguaje? Quiero que ustedes piensen en su comunidad y las barreras que existen, las estructuras de poder que existen ahora y las razones por qué la comunidad no participa en reuniones públicas y comunitarias. Si alguien quiere quitarse el micrófono y tal vez hablar un poquito acerca de por qué creen ustedes que la comunidad, tal vez que habla otro idioma, no participa en reuniones públicas y comunitarias. ¿Qué piensan ustedes? Y si quieren ponerlo en el chat o si lo quieren hablar, como ustedes quieran.
Bueno, yo
Ok.
voy a hablar un poquito.
Ujú.
Yo creo que a veces se considera que, vamos a tener a veces no hay intérprete, no hay seguridad de que va a haber un intérprete, pero incluso yo me he topado con personas que, no, contratamos a un intérprete, pero no hicieron ningún tipo de trabajo para, o sea, con la comunidad, de hablar con personas en la comunidad y asegurar, o sea, es que no se trata solamente de que, para empezar, la gente no necesariamente asume que va a haber un intérprete en una reunión. A veces hay un intérprete, pero todo lo que entregan en papel está solamente en inglés. Las diapositivas están solamente en inglés. Y están, if you can see here, y el intérprete aquí pueden ver, pero si las diapositivas están en inglés, no funciona. Y además, que hace falta hacer mucho más trabajo y que a veces también quieren, con que haya una persona se va a sentir, yo siento un poco incómodo siendo la única persona que está representando a todos los hispanohablantes. Y a veces nos hacen sentir así cuando estamos ahí, porque llegamos a una reunión, representamos a todas las personas, habidas y por haber, que hablan español. Y son algunos de mis pensamientos.
Gracias por ese comentario. Muchas veces, cuando a nosotros, muchas veces esto lo tiene culpas muchas ciudades, no voy a decir una en particular, pero a veces los departamentos de la ciudad o del condado, ellos dicen, pues con que tengamos intérpretes, con eso basta. Y es como algo de hacer check off, nomás para decir, sí, pues sí tenían los intérpretes, yo no sé por qué no vienen. O sienten que el tener un intérprete va a ser un gasto de dinero porque todo el mundo viene la gente o de todo el mundo participan. Pero eso no es involucrar a la comunidad y no hacen el alcance necesario para que nuestras comunidades de veras participen. Quiero hablar de Rosa, ¿tú quieres hablar de checking in? A ti te sale más bonita esta parte.
Aquí estamos, sí. Bueno, I'm going to switch to English. Can you turn your thing? I'm going to switch to English here. So typically when we,
Sorry.
okay, so typically when we enter into spaces, we are told any space, when we enter into a school system, into a bank, into a church even sometimes, typically they tell us in order for you to enter into the space, in order for you to be fully accepted into the space, you have to assimilate, you have to conform to the way that we are here, right? Whether that be your language, whether that be the way that you're dressed, whether that be your behavior, anything around your culture and who you are, we are sometimes asked to assimilate to what the dominant culture is like. When we come into spaces in terms of language justice and racial justice and social justice, we are told to bring our entire selves into that space. We know that everything that we come with is going to, we come to offer it to our space. We come to offer our knowledge, our lived experiences, even those things that sometimes we're not proud of. Those are sometimes even helpful and useful for the group, right? So what is important for us to come as our whole selves is that part of bringing our whole selves is also bringing our language with it. So what we invite in terms of language justice, we invite folks to express themselves in the language that most fully conveys everything about them, right? Their nuances, their hopes, their ideas, their frustrations, or their questions. So I often think about, you know, if you have an issue regarding, if you're talking to the mayor about immigration and the hardships that a new policy has put on your family, if your primary language is Spanish and your what you feel comfortable in is speaking Spanish, even though you might speak English, chances are you're more fully going to convey all of those pieces in Spanish, right? And an interpreter would be needed for that. So this is where we talk about, you know, making sure that we're creating those spaces where we are allowing folks to bring all of themselves into a space, not just a part of themselves. Go to the next slide. So that is, you know, this is the idea of bringing our whole selves into that space, right? That in a space, in a meeting, in a community meeting, in a city council meeting, we value all of those languages and they all have equal footing. So one is not more dominant than the other one. And what this creates is a space for open communication and transparency. So something that might happen sometimes, and we've seen this happen in community spaces before, is people will say, oh, don't translate that part. That's just between us, right? Don't say what I just said. That's just a thing. We're just talking amongst ourselves. Well, what would happen if those people that were listening in were English speakers? Would you still be saying those things? No. So that is why having like the interpreter there and interpreting everything is so important, because we want to create those spaces where only, like, we don't want to create this sense of otherness, right? Of only certain things can be shared with one group and certain things can be shared with other groups. We want to dismantle that and create a space where everyone has equal footing into the conversation.
Okay. So then for this, we create the space of language justice. And the key part of language justice, we have another spectrum that we share with organizations that talk about how do you actually practice language justice? Like, it's not just about having interpretation and translation, but how are we bringing community into the table so that they could be part of the decision-making process of what we're doing? So, but in community terms, it's about asking for interpretation. Like, what we can do is ask and resist the dominant language. There is a key element of language justice is resisting the dominant language. Como nosotros hablamos y resistir el siempre usar el inglés, especialmente a las personas bilingües. Se nos hace más fácil hablar inglés, pero cuando hablamos en español, nos damos cuenta que la gente que habla español quiere participar más y que dice, y ya empiezan a expresar más sus opiniones, y sabemos que cuando hacemos ese cambio del idioma dominante, eso va a incluir a más miembros de la comunidad. Entonces, la otra parte de la justicia del lenguaje es dar validez a todas las personas que están ahí, aunque sea una persona que esté ahí que necesita la interpretación o que necesita los servicios, uno le va a dar esa importancia porque queremos esas voces en la mesa. Estos son los elementos claves de la justicia del lenguaje que queremos estar practicando, y Fuerza Latina ha hecho un compromiso, y vemos cómo el trabajo que está haciendo Fuerza Latina y en Fort Collins ha movido a que la ciudad, cada vez que lo piden, tienen interpretación y siempre están llamando y asegurándose que esto sea lo que necesitan. Y diferentes departamentos, como está el concejal el alcalde y el concejal, y ellos cuando lo piden, lo necesitan. Pero hay departamentos que nos llaman y nos dicen, ok, ¿cómo lo hacemos? ¿Qué es lo que tenemos que hacer? ¿Qué es lo que tenemos que practicar? Y es porque ustedes están haciendo ese movimiento, ustedes están cambiando la manera que hacen las cosas ahí en Fort Collins. Quiero dejar estos últimos 2 minutos para preguntas y respuestas. El tiempo vuela cuando uno está aquí, pero se nos acaba el tiempo. Quiero abrir para preguntas y respuestas que tal vez tengan en este momento. También queremos compartir una forma aquí que pusimos en el chat. Queremos que por favor abran esto y que contesten las preguntas y que nos ayuden a que este entrenamiento sea mejor. Va a durar como 1 minuto para llenar, no está muy largo, pero queremos saber qué es lo que tenemos que hacer para que este entrenamiento sea mejor y más útil para ustedes. ¿Alguien tiene alguna pregunta o un comentario, algo para terminar acerca de lo que han aprendido que les ha llamado la atención?
Yo tengo una pregunta.
Pueden
Buenas
quitarse el
tardes.
micrófono y hablar en voz alta.
¿Sí me escuchan?
Jesús.
Sí. Ok. Yo tengo una pregunta. Ahorita yo trabajo para una organización que estamos en proceso de cómo vamos a hacer trabajo de traducción y de interpretación para internamente y también para nuestros miembros. Y el problema ha sido, o no problema, pero hay una discusión de qué es lenguaje de justicia. Como que es un poco incómodo para algunas personas qué exactamente qué es. Como que muchas personas entienden que el lenguaje de justicia es que vamos a tener todos los idiomas. Entonces mi pregunta es, ¿cómo yo puedo decirle a estas personas de que no es así? Lo que estamos tratando de hacer es de que las comunidades con las que estamos trabajando tengan acceso a nuestros eventos, de que se sientan parte de la comunidad. Pero ¿cómo se les... ¿Usted qué le diría? Pues mi pregunta es, ¿cómo podemos quitar esa idea de que el lenguaje de justicia es que vamos a proveer interpretación en todos los idiomas?
Yo diría que evalúen su comunidad y miren cuáles son los idiomas que son necesarios, y así para que cuando a veces la gente se asusta cuando dices, pues vamos a proveer en todos los idiomas, la gente dice, ay no, pues van a haber montones y cómo le vamos a hacer a todos ellos. Hay que evaluar y hay que asesorar a ver cuáles son los idiomas que de veras son los que van a participar. Y luego yo les recomiendo que usen personal, que capaciten a su personal para que ellos sean los traductores y intérpretes en estos espacios. No siempre, porque a las organizaciones que les cuesta entender esto es porque no quieren gastar el dinero, no hay un compromiso al presupuesto que implica tener interpretación. Entonces, usar los recursos que tienen adentro, pero y traer más capacitación para las organizaciones para que entiendan más de lo que es. Creo que Rosy va a compartir algo rápidamente con nosotros para que puedas tal vez compartir con las organizaciones para que ellos miren qué es lo que de veras es. ¿Está bien, no? Ok. Pero, pienso que al decir vamos a ofrecer justicia del lenguaje, eso asusta a muchas organizaciones, como que dicen, ay, pues es que va a ser un dinero y va a costar mucho. Eso yo creo que es la parte más difícil de entender en ese espacio. Pero y no tiene que ser así, tiene que ser de una manera que dice, nos vamos a comprender, que sea una plática más de equidad. O sea, queremos que todos participen, que todos sean parte y queremos proveer equidad para estas personas. Y al hacerlo de esa manera, la justicia del lenguaje tiene que entrar ahí. Do you have it? Ahí va. Rosa les
Mira,
va a mandar. Ajá, yes.
sorry, para hacerle seguimiento a lo que tú estás explicando, si, digamos, si existe el presupuesto y existen las ganas, pero no se sabe exactamente cómo realmente proveer esa equidad, ¿qué es lo básico para empezar a proveer esa equidad? ¿Cómo se puede orientar a un equipo para que se empiecen a hacer esos cambios? Digamos, ¿qué cantidad de cosas se tienen que traducir para realmente estar proveyendo la equidad? Interpretación en los eventos, qué es lo básico, lo importante para realmente estar proveyendo equidad y no hacerlo como a medias.
Entonces, esto va en paz, es una jornada, no es algo que dices, ya, estamos en justicia del lenguaje, ya sabemos hacerlo. Esto es una jornada y va de paso a paso, especialmente con las organizaciones que no tienen aún el compromiso. Entonces, si tú logras que ellos tengan interpretación en una reunión, ya es un win. Si logras a que te dejen a ti a facilitar y dar la bienvenida en español y que todos escuchen en inglés, ya eso es un win. Y voy a, en el... en el chat pusimos los tenets de lo que es Language Justice. Y también tenemos un programa solamente para organizaciones que habla acerca de cómo es que las organizaciones pueden practicar la justicia del lenguaje, cuáles son las herramientas que ellos deben de tener para llegar a la justicia del lenguaje. Y como te digo, no, como mucha gente hace su presupuesto un año antes de este año. Si llega alguien y dice, ay, vamos a hacer la justicia del lenguaje, pero no tienen el presupuesto, entonces tienen que trabajar con lo que tienen y empezar de pasito a pasito. Rosa, do you want to explain that part? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So folks, I just shared with you all some tenets. Use the second document that I shared with you. Sorry, but the first one wasn't complete. And so what you'll see, and I can share it with you real quick, because I know we're out of time now, is that it's not just about providing translation and interpretation. It's really about climate and culture. And I wish this was, this was flipped over. I don't know why it's doing that. So we have interpretation, translation. We talk about literacy levels, right? Maybe reducing the amount of text that you have, not having so much text and having more icons, using iconic art and things like that. Also thinking about your staff development, hiring, training, and compensating your bilingual staff. Thinking about the culture and climate of your organization, right? Do people feel comfortable speaking in the language of their heart? Or do we have cases where people are like, don't talk about me because you're speaking in Spanish. I know you're speaking about me when we speak in Spanish. Those are like the microaggressions that show up that don't allow people to speak fully, right? And then the last piece of language justice is really growth and sustainability. Thinking about, how are you moving this process forward? This is kind of like the down the line for organizations. This isn't something that we do in an introductory training, but it's something that we talk about down the line once organizations have made a commitment and investment into language justice.
Se nos acabó el tiempo, pero queremos, por favor, que llenen la forma que tenemos ahí en el chat. Quiero que miremos esto y quiero poner mi información de contacto para que si tienen alguna pregunta o si quieren tener una plática y una charla para hablar más de cómo poder convencer a nuestras organizaciones a hacer esto, yo estoy más que feliz de hablar con ustedes y darles las palabras, el lenguaje que se puede usar para empezar a movernos a esa manera. Voy a pedir que, para terminar, voy a pedir que nomás todos digan una palabra de cómo se sienten en este momento. Siento que voy a empezar yo. Me siento incompleta. Siento que queremos entrar más, pero se nos va el tiempo. Pero una palabra nomás, sorry.
Hey, para mí es claridad, un poco más de claridad lo que es el justicia del lenguaje.
Entendimiento y aprendizaje.
Para mí motivador.
Tenemos en el chat gratitud, agradecido. ¿Alguien más que quiera decir?
Informada.
Motivada.
Voy a decir inspirada, inspirada por el grupo de aquí y su compromiso.
Pues
Reflecting. Reflexionando bastante. Gracias.
Yo estaba confundida un poco acerca de lo que debería ser mi derecho y lo que no tenía derecho a pedir. Gracias.
La justicia del lenguaje da voz y es bastante apreciable la diferencia entre lo que es la justicia, la traducción de ahora con la tradicional.
Muchísimas gracias. Tengo otras palabras. Motivada, siento feliz, gratitud, más de justicia del lenguaje. Les quiero agradecer otra vez por permitirnos estar en comunidad con ustedes. Estoy feliz de ver caras que conozco y a nuevas personas que estamos conociendo. Por favor, chequen más acerca de fuerzalatina.org en Fort Collins. Ahí pusieron el link en el chat. Llenen la forma y muchas gracias. Gracias por estar con nosotros y compartir esta mañana con nosotros. Y también